What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. Appreciate everyone keeping us locked in. As always, get social with us at Rich Q and Q. The engagement, the eyeballs, the back and forth, the banner on the YouTube channel has been phenomenal. Greatly appreciate it. Keep it coming. So we got a busy night. We got two Back Your Plays coming up in about 20, 25 minutes. Jovan Alford's going to join us. We'll talk a ton of Eagles, NFL, and a little NBA with him. Lloyd Vance, we go around the NFL with him as well. So busy football night. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, check it out. If you like what you see, definitely hit the subscribe button. But I wanted to get into a little bit of the Giants for the Giant audience that routinely chimes in and listens in to the show. After the 38-7 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles in the divisional round of the playoffs on Saturday night, in a game that you have to just call it the way you see it, was not even remotely competitive. And I know it's still fresh on the minds of the Giant fans, but the bottom line is this: the New York Giants, I think they exceeded the expectations. I don't think anyone really saw the type of season that they were going to have. If you take a step back, if you look where they were the last several years, if you look at how far they've come under new GM Joe Shane, first-year head coach, new head coach Brian Dable, you think about the nonsense with the McAdoos, the judges, the Shermers of the world. Not a lot of national media or pundits or talking heads or so-called experts had this team pegged to win 6, 7, 8 games. What did they do? They exceeded all of that. They won 9. They won on the road, and they won a playoff game, and then they came up into a buzzsaw and arguably the best team in the NFL in the Philadelphia Eagles. So a couple things with that game the other night that bothered me. And I'm okay if you lose a football game. The heart, you want to will the win, but ultimately your head tells you something different. I mentioned this last week, and then I mentioned it on the 27 and Q pod with Brandon Jacobs. If they cannot weather the early storm, those early punches by the Philadelphia Eagles, they were going to get blown out of the building. And that's exactly what happens. That first play, right, as soon as the Philadelphia Eagles took the ball, first play of the game, the 40-yard completion, Hurts to Smith, I believe. I think Love got beat. That set the tone. Boom, 7-0. Here you go. Then all of a sudden, you blink again, and the Giants have the ball. And I think in a panic move, and I understand the philosophy of going for it on 4th and 8 from the Eagles' 40-yard line. You don't really trust your punter. He's already had one block in the past. You don't trust him getting off the kick. You're not going to attempt a long field goal. So again, if it goes in the end zone, how many yards are you really losing from a putt standpoint? But my problem is really the play calling. Think about this. You have it 4th and 8 on the Philly 40-yard line. 3rd and 3, you should run it. Why are you having the quarterback drop back to pass? He's sacked by Reddick, I believe. Then you got the 4th and 8, same disruption, same play, same scenario. Couldn't even get the pass off. That also set the tone. It also shortened the field for Philadelphia. They went right down 14-0. You saw on the interception by Bradbury, Slayton really not the best run route. Jones a little more better decision-making. Even when they were down big in the game, put it right in Richie James's hands for what should have been a 77-yarder, nothing there. The drop, Saquon didn't have that burst on that one giddy up on that one run. They could not convert on 3rd down. They couldn't stop 3rd down. And the Philadelphia Eagles ran for 268 yards. So all this talk about the Giants stacking a box, let Hurts roll out the RPOs, we're going to man up these guys on the outside. None of that happened. Gainwell 112, Sanders 90, Scott another touchdown, by the way, go figure, and Jalen Hurts 34, Scott 32 on the ground. That adds up to 268, 14-0, 28-0, lights out, 38-7. Here you go. Good night. Okay, fine. But here's the problem I have with that game. And I am not disappointed that they lost or angry that they lost. Where I'm disappointed is the lack that I perceived as effort in that game. They look like they played the game scared. They look like they were thoroughly outcoached, outmanned, out-hustled, outworked, outbodied. They were not mentally prepared to play in that game. And that has to do with head coaching. Now, am I going to sit here and say, ultimately, at the end of the day, does that ruin the type of season that Dayball has? or had as a head coach. No, I still believe he's coach of the year for the talent that they have. I mean, think about these players they were trotting out. Let's be fair, okay? The offensive line is still a major, major issue. We know that. Again, these rankings don't lie. They were 31st in 2020, 30th in 2021, and 30th again in 2022. Hence, you get the 5-6 sats against Daniel Jones. Never had time to get in rhythm, never had time to get in a groove, never had time to set his feet. You can't overstate that sometimes you just get manhandled in a game. But to go on the road against a familiar opponent in a place that you have just had nightmares, and to put forth that type of effort should not sit well with the fan base. It should not sit well with Giant fans because that was not even a competitive game. Man, I don't care if you get blown out. I don't care if you lose the game. If they would have turned around and lost this game 27-24 in a last-second field goal, 28-24, 28-21, late touchdown, played hard, then all of a sudden it's like fool's gold. You think you're going to run it back with that roster and that talent. No, that's not the case. But to get blown out, your best case scenario, realizing you're so far off and light years behind what the Philadelphia Eagles are doing, you've got a lot of friggin' work ahead of you. But the effort was not there. They just seemed overwhelmed and overmatched. They didn't even put up a fight. You want to lose, but missed tackles, shoddy routes, laissez-faire approach. Again, you got wide receivers, yards after the catch, running backs gaining another 3, 4, 5, 6 yards after the first point of contact. That's unacceptable, especially we were sold all week on Martindale's defense, this aggressive scheme, this aggressive approach. And folks, it was painful to watch. It was painful to watch. They got thoroughly dominated and embarrassed. Now, again, here's the positive. If you lose that game and it's close, you almost start to believe in fool's gold where, hey, maybe we're right there. That's not the case. That's not the case. Overall successful season, absolutely. Overall change of culture, yes. Change of environment, yes. Philosophy, yes. But they're still void of some big-time talent. And now you start to get into this conversation. We saw the GM and the head coach speak yesterday, Brian Dable and Joe Shane, talking about the two big elephants in the room. One is the quarterback in Daniel Jones. The other is the running back, Saquon Barkley. To both of their respective credits, they came back and had fantastic years. Jones's numbers are not going to blow you away. I get it. You wanted him to cut down on the turnovers. You wanted a higher completion percentage. You wanted him to use his athleticism, his legs. Decision-making was better. And you got that. You can't deny that. You got that. He had career highs pretty much in everything except touchdown tosses. Fine. He was also sacked 45 times. Okay. Plus 5 in the playoff game. I think ultimately what's going to happen with Daniel Jones is they're going to come to a fair contract, right? So this is what I've come up with. The going rate, maybe like a Kirk Cousins deal, even though Cousins is due to make $36 million in 2023, 4 to 5 year deal of market value, a bridge contract. So you basically would pay Daniel Jones at market rate, but you have an out if the production's not there. And you look at quarterbacks like Ryan Tannehill with Tennessee, Derek Carr, who is hoping to get traded. They have those kind of deals. Then you got the non-exclusive rights franchise tag, which I pulled up those numbers, $32 million. It's not often used. If a team's pretty desperate, they offer Jones a contract. Under this tag, the Giants then have the right to either match the deal or let him go in exchange for 2 first-round draft picks. We know they covet those draft picks as well. I can't sit here today on a Tuesday, almost 5 o'clock Eastern time, on Back Your Play and say, this is how much you should pay Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones said all the right things because at the end of the day, it's business. Ultimately, it's all about the business. He might think he's worth 25, 30, 35, 40, what have you. Do I believe the game against the Eagles hurt his value? I don't, because I also think long picture, what did he do this season? And the fact that he went into Minnesota and beat the Vikings, albeit you want to talk about their defense, fine. Look who he was throwing to. That's all I'm saying. You had no Robinson. Shepard got hurt. You traded Tony the bust, the malcontent. You got absolutely nothing from Kenny Golladay. And you had practice squad players, the Richie Jameses. Bellinger's a nice player, the tight end. And then, of course, Hodges, I think, is going to be a real nice player with the New York Football Giants going forward. But they're not number ones, right? And Slayton. Okay. So from that standpoint, what are you willing to pay Daniel Jones 3, 4, 5 years? I think if Daniel Jones is smart, he doesn't undervalue himself. He realized he's going to bank some coin. But I would also caution him and think about this. If Kafka gets a head coaching job and you lose the offensive coordinator, Daniel Jones really isn't going to follow per se. But if you go to a different system, a different head coach, different talent around you, different organization, and a different coordinator, now you're learning again. I mean, how many coordinators and how many head coaches has this kid had in his first couple of years in the NFL? Do the math. So I think ultimately I would be comfortable, 25, 27. That's where I think he's at. And I believe you can win with Daniel Jones. I believe you can get to the playoffs with Daniel Jones. Like every other quarterback in the NFL, the other 31, things do have to be perfect, right? There are these rarities that we're seeing in the NFL, but a lot of the quarterbacks, they have talent around them. Even these last four standing in the playoffs, they have talent at the key positions. So I believe Jones comes back. Saquon, I'm not 100% sure yet on Saquon Barkley. And if you listen to the show for the last several years, I've said this almost ad nauseum. I think what happened with the New York Giants is that when you draft Saquon Barkley in the fashion that you drafted him with the expectations, and that was all Gettleman, right? Touched by the hand of God, this, that, the other thing. You have to remember, fifth-year option, right? It's really for top 10 picks. So and again, this is where I want to go back to Jones for a second, but follow me. It's basically the franchise tag price to getting the franchise tag. So if you're outside the top 10, you can live with that. Okay, fine. But it makes your decision, I think, a little more easier if you're looking for that fifth round option. So that's when you look at a guy like Odell Beckham with his contract at the time, that was a steal, signed fifth-year option. You're not going to franchise tag him. But again, if it's a manageable number, then you can kind of live with that. So this is what I think happens now with the Giants. If the Giants turn around, they'll have $3.67 million in dead cap, right? Because of Tony too for 2023. Get excited. Joe Shane has $53.7 million in dead cap. Players no longer on the roster, but counting against the cap. So that's plus 17.8 on Kenny Golladay, who's done nothing and was benched. Now, if you think about what the Gettleman years, that was about 25 plus million in dead cap. So yes, the number is going to increase once they cut, and they will, Kenny Golladay. It's either going to jump by about 7 or 14 million, depending upon if the Giants make him a post June 1st cut. Either way, it's a healthier dead cap position than they've been in under Dave Gettleman. Now, this is where the Saquon comes into play. So if you're Saquon Barkley, I think you said all the right things. I think you're keeping it close to the vest. I think it hurts if Elliott comes out and says, I'll take a pay cut. Then we start to devalue the position a little more. He mentioned that with the Dallas Cowboys. If you're Saquon, I don't see Saquon Barkley getting a Christian McCaffrey type of deal, right? That's $16 million. If you tag him, now you're looking at $10.1 million. So Elliott wanted that pay cut, making about $10 million in 2023. He's willing to take a hometown discount. I think that hurts the running back value, so to speak. So this whole report, Giants offered him $12 million during the bye, wasn't even close to contract talks. Okay, fine. You still have other players, Andrew Thomas, Julian Love, Dexter Lawrence. You're going to want to sign these guys. Thibodeau eventually. Like, you're going to want to sign these guys, right? And those guys, like I said, I think Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Kayvon Thibodeau, those are the faces of the franchise right now. And yeah, we'll throw Daniel Jones in there. If you franchise tag him, which he doesn't want on a one-year deal, that's $10 million. The numbers speak for themselves. Over 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. We know what he did in the backfield. Everyone's pulling up the highlight from the Eagles game the other day. Man, if this was a couple of years ago, you would have saw that burst. He would have hit it. I believe CMC is a more talented, all-around better back than Saquon Barkley because he can also catch the ball in the backfield. I know Barkley's been working on that. But I also believe this is what happens when you turn around and you draft running back so high, and then all of a sudden you go, and you're thinking about it. Let me go get a quarterback right at the 4th spot, the 5th spot, the 6th spot. You're not going to be able to pay both of them. I don't know if they're going to tag Barkley. I think if anything, it is a team-friendly type of deal where you just got to be careful with the guarantees when you break it all down. To me, he is a $12 to $13 million back. He's not 16. He's not. And backs are very disposable. Backs are a dime a dozen. You don't need an all-world back to win a Super Bowl. You don't. They're over. We put too much value sometimes in the backs, and teams don't want to pay them X amount of dollars. They just don't. So that's kind of where we're at. We'll talk a little bit about it later on, but let me know your thoughts. What do they do with Daniel Jones? You think you tag him? You let him walk, you test the market. Also Saquon. And look, I was wrong on Saquon. I thought he was shot. He came back, had a hell of a season. There's reports, remember Buffalo flirted with him. Now there's some mocks coming out saying Denver would make a play for him if he hits the market. To me, he's not a 15, 16, 17 million dollar back. He's just not. That's just my opinion, whether you guys agree or disagree. All right. So got a couple minutes. We'll hit our spots with our guy, Jovan Alford for BYP, also Lloyd Vance. I'll get their thoughts on this as well. Let me know what you guys think. As always, check out the channel. And like I said, we don't ask for much. If you like what you hear, if you like what you see, definitely hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share. Appreciate it. Have a good Sports Tuesday. We will talk to you later on with 2 more editions of BYP.